All right, guys, we are on chapter 1 of What is the Statue of Liberty? So, chapter 1 is the big idea. It all started in 1865 at a dinner party outside Paris, France. At least that's the legend that was printed in a fundraising brochure for the Statue of Liberty 20 years later. The party was held in the home of a law professor named Eduardo de Labrule. He was an expert on American history. He'd written books about the American way of government. He thought all countries should be like the United States, free to elect their own government leaders. The Civil War had just ended in America, and he had admired President Abraham Lincoln for bringing slavery to an end and uniting all the states again after the war. This was a sign that the democratic form of government was strong. In the end, it had worked well even during troubled times. Just as the 13 American colonies had once risen up against the King of England, so too had the French people rebelled against the king. The French Revolution had begun in 1789, only 13 years after the Americans proclaimed their independence. Unfortunately, unlike the American Revolution, the French Revolution ended in disaster. Instead of becoming a free country, France was ruled by a series of emperors. Their word was law. The French people couldn't say anything against their government without getting in big trouble. Labrule wanted to make a statement in support of political freedom, but he needed to do it in a way that wouldn't put him in danger. He couldn't help but dream. What if France gave America an amazing monument that helped celebrate liberty? One of Labrule's dinner guests that night was a sculptor. His name was Frederick Auguste Bartholomew. He liked to work big. He'd gone to see the pyramids and the Sphinx in Egypt. These gigantic ancient monuments really had impressed him. He wasn't quite interested in American politics as Labrule, but he loved the statue idea and volunteered to sculpt it. So he liked different things like the pyramid and the Sphinx, so really big monuments. All right, I'm going to read something quickly about the French Revolution. King Louis XVI of France helped American colonists win independence from England in 1783. The American War cost France a lot of money. His wife, Queen Marie Antoinette, liked to buy fancy clothes and jewels and throw big parties. While the king and queen spent the country's riches as they pleased, poor French people were starving. On July 14, 1789, the French Revolution began when Paris citizens broke into the Bastille prison and stole weapons to fight the king and his government. The French revolutionaries got together and wrote their own Declaration of Independence, which they called the Declaration of Rights of Man. Soon, the battles became bloody and violent. In 1793, the king and queen were beheaded by rich, powerful people who thought to be the enemies of everyday French people. Over 17,000 politicians, landowners, and business owners were put on trial and executed. Many were beheaded. In 1799, a general in the French army named Napoleon rose to power and the revolution ended. That's crazy. Beheadings. Of course, Bartholomew knew just as well as Labrule that such a statue could land them in jail. They'd be arrested by the Emperor Napoleon III's secret police. Their idea was put on hold, but not forgotten. Meanwhile, Bartholomew took a second trip to Egypt in 1869. He hoped to design a lighthouse at the entrance to the new building, the Suez Canal, which connected the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea. It would be no ordinary lighthouse. It would be in the shape of a woman. He wanted to name it the Egypt, bringing the light to Asia. Besides actually lighting the way for ships, this statue would symbolize Egypt leading the way to new ideas. He quickly made sketches and models of the statue. Egypt's ruler liked the project. However, Egypt didn't have the money to build it. Many historians think that Bartholomew based the Statue of Liberty on his ideas for the Suez Canal lighthouse. He never would say why he had done both designs as women in ancient-style clothes, or why both wear crowns and hold a torch high in one hand. I did not know that. By 1870, Napoleon III was no longer in power. Labrule hoped that now a democracy would take root in France. Presenting a statue in honor of liberty to America might inspire the French to work towards a liberal, elected government of their own. He knew that building a gigantic statue would cost a lot of money. Would his fellow citizens think it was worth it? What about Americans? what would they think of the idea? Would they agree to accept the statue? Would they offer a suitable piece of land where the statue could be displayed? Bartholomew decided to go find out. So it's interesting that he based 2 of his statues on the same type of idea. All right, and that is where we will stop for now. See you tomorrow.